If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps me sharing more powerful stories with you. In today's video, I never thought my life would come to this. Never imagined that the days I once filled with quiet routines, small hopes, and simple plans would dissolve into something so raw, so desperate. But then came the knock. It wasn't just any knock. It was deep, deliberate, like fate itself had arrived on my doorstep, demanding payment for every mistake I'd ever made. And in that single sound, I felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. 3 months behind on rent. No savings left. No family to call. I had sold my jewelry, skipped meals, begged for extra shifts at work. Nothing had been enough. And inside these 4 walls, all that remained were unpaid bills, a thinning patience, and silence. Then came Mr. Lucas, my landlord. He didn't need to speak. I already knew why he was there. His presence carried its own kind of gravity. When I opened the door, robe loosely tied, still half asleep, his eyes swept over me in a way that said more than words could. "Eva," he said at last. His voice was smooth but weighted. "You're 3 months late." I clutched the robe tighter, though the fabric suddenly felt paper thin. My throat went dry. "I know," I whispered. I just need more time." But instead of answering, he stepped inside, uninvited. He closed the door with a quiet click, the sound echoing louder than thunder in my head. The air in the room shifted. It felt heavier, charged, as if every second that passed carried consequences I wasn't ready to face. He studied me with unsettling patience, like a man considering not just my words, but my value. Then he murmured, almost to himself, "It's a shame a woman like you struggling." Something in me froze. I didn't know whether to scream, to push him out, or to beg. His words lingered, curling into something darker, something unspoken. "What do you mean?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. He stepped closer. His voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut. "You're beautiful, Eva. But beauty doesn't pay the bills. And time doesn't either." My stomach tightened. I'd heard lines like this before, from strangers, from men who thought kindness could be bought, from situations I swore I'd never find myself in again. But this time, the stakes weren't just about pride. They were about my home, my survival. "I've tried everything," I said, voice breaking, eyes fixed on the floor. "There's nothing left." He tilted his head, studying me the way a chess player studies the board before making the winning move. "Maybe not," he said softly. "Or maybe you've overlooked one final option." Silence stretched between us, so thin and fragile I thought it might shatter. My heart pounded against my ribs as if trying to escape. "What option?" I whispered. That was when I saw it in his eyes. The truth. The proposition. The unspoken line I swore I'd never be asked to cross, now hovering in the space between us. And at that moment, I realized my life was about to change forever. I could feel my breath catch in my throat. The room was quiet, but his silence was louder than words. That single suggestion, one final option, seemed to hang in the air like smoke, wrapping itself around me, choking me with what it really meant. I looked at him, searching for clarity, maybe even mercy in his face. But his eyes, they weren't the eyes of a man simply collecting rent. They were calculating, deliberate. They belonged to someone who already knew the answer to the question I hadn't asked out loud. "What are you saying?" My voice cracked as I forced the words out. He leaned in slightly, close enough that I could smell his cologne, sharp, lingering, almost suffocating. His lips curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. "Eva, let's not pretend. You know exactly what I mean." And just like that, the truth was there, sitting between us like an unwelcome guest. The unspoken proposition. The price that had nothing to do with money. I felt my heart hammering, a dull ache rising in my chest. Anger, shame, fear. But also, and this was the part one hated most, temptation. Because what if he really could make it all go away? What if this was the only way? My mind raced. The walls around me seemed to close in. I saw the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, the half-empty fridge, the cracked couch that had become my bed. My apartment wasn't a home anymore. It was a cage. And maybe, just maybe, he held the key. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw him out. But instead, I just stood there, trembling, caught between two impossible choices. My dignity, or my survival. His voice broke through my thoughts, low and deliberate. I can make your problems disappear tonight. No one else needs to know. The words wrapped around me like chains. Gentle in tone but heavy in meaning. He spoke as if he were offering me a favor, when in reality, he was presenting me with a bargain I never thought I'd face. My throat felt tight. I don't know if I can. You can, he said quickly, almost reassuringly, as if he were a friend guiding me through a storm instead of the very storm itself. I looked at him again, his expression calm, confident, like this was never in question, like he had been expecting me to bend all along. My hands shook as I pulled my robe tighter, but it didn't help. I felt exposed, vulnerable. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, with nothing but darkness waiting below. Time slowed. Seconds dragged. My chest rose and fell, each breath uneven. I wanted to say no. Every part of me screamed it. But another voice, smaller, weaker, more desperate, whispered something else. What if this is the only way? And in that silence, in that fragile moment, I realized that no matter what choice I made, my life would never be the same again. The silence between us was unbearable. Every tick of the clock on the wall felt like a hammer against my chest. I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears, drowning out every thought except one. How did I end up here? Mr. Lucas didn't move right away. He just watched me, patient, steady, as though time belonged to him and me alone. His presence filled the room, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. He didn't have to say another word. His meaning was already carved into the air around us. Finally, he leaned closer, lowering his voice to something almost tender. You're stronger than this place, Eva. But strength doesn't pay rent. Sometimes, survival means making choices we don't want to make. His words hit me like a blade wrapped in velvet. Smooth, careful, but cutting just the same. And deep down I knew he was right. Or at least, that was how he wanted me to feel. I turned away from him, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. The shadows stretched across the floor. My apartment felt smaller than ever, like the walls themselves were listening, waiting to see what I would do. Memories flickered in my mind. The night I skipped dinner so I could save a few dollars, the humiliation of pawning my mother's ring, the empty look on my manager's face when he told me there were no more shifts. Each memory weighed on me like stones in my pockets, dragging me down. I can't, I whispered, more to myself than to him. My voice trembled, breaking apart at the edges. But Mr. Lucas just shook his head slowly, like a teacher correcting a naive student. You can. You just don't want to admit it yet. The room seemed to shrink. My chest tightened. I wrapped my arms around myself, but it didn't make me feel safer. It only made me feel more trapped. Every instinct screamed at me to resist, to hold on to whatever dignity I had left. But then the other voice returned. The same desperate whisper I couldn't silence. If you don't, what then? Where will you go? How will you survive? I closed my eyes, fighting the tears that threatened to fall. I didn't want him to see me break. I didn't want him to know how close I already was to the edge. And yet he seemed to sense it. His expression shifted. Not cruel, but certain, like someone watching the last pieces of a puzzle fall into place. You don't have to answer now, he said finally. His tone was calm, almost gentle, but beneath it was a current of control that made my skin crawl. But Eva, you know the truth. And once you know it, you can't pretend it isn't there. His words echoed in the silence, heavy and suffocating. He was right, I did know the truth. I just wasn't ready to face what it demanded of me. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. Whether I said yes or no, either way, I had already lost a part of myself. That was the moment I understood. My life, my choices, were no longer entirely my own. I stood frozen, my arms wrapped tight around myself as though I could somehow hold together the pieces of my breaking world. Mr. Lucas's words lingered in the air, clinging to me like smoke I couldn't escape. I wanted to believe that I still had control, that I could push him out of my apartment and slam the door, that I could walk away with my head high. But the truth was harsher, colder. The moment he stepped inside, control had slipped through my fingers. My eyes drifted to the stack of envelopes piled high on the counter, Rent notices, late fees, final warnings. They weren't just paper. They were chains. Every letter I opened had pulled me deeper into this corner, until there was nowhere left to go. For a brief moment, my mind tried to escape to the past. To better days. To mornings where the hardest choice I faced was which coffee mug to use, or which bus would get me to work on time. I remembered laughing with coworkers, buying small things I didn't really need, making plans for weekends that felt endless. That life, it felt like a lifetime ago. Now all that remained was survival. And survival, I was realizing, had a cost. I felt the tears sting, but I forced them back. I didn't want him to see me cry. I didn't want him to know how much power he already held over me just by standing there. Mr. Lucas watched me quietly. His calmness was unnerving, like a man certain of the outcome, waiting only for me to accept what he already believed was inevitable. Think about it, Eva, he said finally. His tone was soft, persuasive, yet lined with steel. You've run out of options. I'm offering you a way out. A way out. The words echoed in my mind. They sounded almost merciful, almost kind. But I knew better. They weren't a rescue. They were a transaction. A trade that would cost me something I wasn't sure I could ever get back. I turned toward the window. Outside, the city moved on without me. Cars rushing, people walking with purpose, lights flickering as day gave way to night. The world didn't care about my struggle. No one was coming to save me. And in that crushing loneliness, I realized the most terrifying part. He was right. No one else needed to know. No one else would. This choice, this moment, would live here, between these walls, and inside me. But even as that thought sank in, a question twisted inside me like a knife. If I said yes, would I truly be surviving? Or would I be slowly losing myself, piece by piece?